Hello everyone, welcome to today's session on verbal ability of GRE. Hope you all are aware of GRE, the exam, and hope you all are clear on why you are taking the test. Let me first take you through the pattern of the test. And in pattern, we will discuss in detail with the verbal reasoning and the analytical section. So this is the overall pattern of the examination. The first task that you will begin with is analytical writing assessment. We call it in short AWA. Analytical writing assessment. In this section, you will have two tasks that you need to respond to. These are two writing tasks. The two tasks have no choice. One task is called as issue task and the other one is called as argument task. Each only one question, so there is no choice. The complete score that you could get is on the range of 0 to 6. For each of the tasks, you have 30 minutes. So overall, you have 1 hour. Got it? So analytical writing assessment is a test for your writing skills. Now, why do you think you have this part in your test? Why do you think GRE tests you on your writing skills? Do you have an answer? We've been writing all through our childhood, starting from kindergarten. Why does somebody need to test my writing skills? Now, if you ask me that question, let me tell you this. As master's aspirants, right? Some of you are opting for masters, some of you are opting for PhD probably. But as part of your course curriculum, in order to build your profile, you will be taking up many tasks like paper publishing, presentations, thesis submission, dissertations, PhD submissions, etc., etc., etc. All these things involve a lot of writing. So it matters that the students who are aspiring for these courses have that skill. That's the reason writing is there. Now, writing of an issue task is more like you have a topic and there's a specification given. You need to respond to that. So there's something similar to essay writing, and you have specific directions that you need to stick to. But when it comes to an argument task, it's more like analysis of a given piece of content. Analysis of a given piece of content that you have there. Now, these two things, they slightly differ, but overall, they test you on few areas. One, your ability to think critically. Are you thinking superficially? Are you thinking deeply? Because you all know that as part of problem solving, right, issue solving or problem solving or any analysis that you do, you have to go deep. Superficial things don't work all the time. So it is a test for your critical thinking skills. Can you think critically? Can you think on both sides of the coin? That means, are you just going in one direction, or can you think in all directions and then come to a conclusion? Right? For example, yes means yes, no means no. Okay, good. But before coming to that conclusion of yes and no, are you thinking all possible situations that you can get into? That is what this tests. It tests your grammar skills. It tests your vocabulary skills. It tests your ability to frame your thinking. How can you think? How you think? And are you able to express the same thing in the right way? Many times in real life, you might have encountered situations where you think of saying something, but you end up saying something else. And you have to say, oh, that is not what I meant. Actually, I meant this. You need to reconfirm or reassure or give another explanation to them. All those things you can't do do the stuff in your writing task. You have only one opportunity. So they are testing you on your ability to think properly. How well can you think, and how well can you express your ideas? How well you can express, communicate yourself to the person who is evaluating your response there. So overall our score is 0 to 6. 0 is like you didn't do anything, and 1, 2, etc. are not so great. You are given marks in the range of 0.50, 0.51, 1.5 and all. So total 1 hour. This is a section that you generally begin with. Later you have your verbal quant sections, and they might come up in any order. And I will discuss now in detail with the verbal section, where you'll have 2 sections, each of 20 questions approximately, and the duration is fixed, which is 30 minutes. So generally you have the word approximately 20 questions. The reason they have given this is, at the time of beginning your section, it will be displayed there for you how many questions, how much time you have and all that. So approximately 20 questions and 30 minutes for each section. Okay, and the score range is 130 to 170. Similarly, quant, it's 20 questions and 35 minutes per section, 130 to 170. Now, if somebody comes out and says, I got 130 in GRE, that's equivalent to the base mark. Okay, 130 is equal to a base mark. As long as it is not 0, if you think you are happy, guys, 130 is a base mark, and you definitely have to target more and more and more than that. Okay. Now, how much should I target? What should my score be? And what are the different things that we are tested in verbal reasoning? In your verbal reasoning, you have 3 different types of questions there. There are 3 different types of questions. The first one is sentence equivalence. The first one is sentence equivalence. This is one question type you have. The next one is text completion. And another one is reading comprehension. In short, we would call this as SE, TC and RC. Okay guys, SE, TC and RC. Now how are these generally? Well, if you take the sentence equivalence, here you have a sentence, simple sentence, one sentence. You have one blank and you have 6 options. From these 6 options, you need to pick 2 answers which complete my given sentence. 2 answers. Okay, one sentence, one blank, 6 option. You need to pick 2 options that complete the blank. Is that clear? Sentence equivalence. The next one is text completion. Text completion. Now this is similar to sentence equivalence, but there is a slight variation there. Now you have a sentence here or 1 to 5 sentences. So you may have a single sentence or a paragraph here. You will have blanks, but within blanks there is variation. You may have one blank question, and when you have one blank, you have 5 options. You have 2 blank questions or 3 blank questions. When you have this, for each blank, you'll have 3 options. So in this case of text completion, for every blank, you need to fill 1 answer. Sentence equivalence, for every blank, 2 answers. Text completion, every blank, 1 answer. So this is the pattern of this sentence equivalent and text completion. Now what are you tested with this area? What are you tested through this? You know that you're going to a country where English is the mode of communication. Many people speak English. There may be people from diverse communities, different nationalities and all, but English is the language that you speak. Your command and English language is definitely tested here. Along with that, there are areas like these that have to be tested. 1. You have a sentence with an empty space. That means an incomplete text. Right? You have a sentence with a blank, which means incomplete text. So, your ability to read an incomplete text, understand what it means, and then fill the right answer. Your ability to understand an incomplete text and find the right answer is tested here. Most of the questions will have clues given there. So how properly can you read? Can you identify the clues given? Can you pick the right word? They are tested here. So your vocab knowledge is important here. Your knowledge of the words and their meanings is important. At the same time, your ability to understand the sentence properly is important. This section definitely needs a lot of effort in vocabulary. It needs a lot of effort in vocabulary. You need to work in that, and also you need to have the ability to read sentences and understand them properly. Okay? Now the next one is reading comprehension. This is the last one that we have here. In reading comprehension, what do you have? Did you ever do them in childhood? Yes, you did, guys. You may have questions like passages. You have a passage given and you have some questions there, multiple choice questions. And you can do a little bit of inky pinky ponky and find out the answer easily without difficulty there in childhood days. But now it's not going to be so easy. You need to think critically. You need to read through the complete test. You need to read. Your ability to read is tested. Second, can you understand the text properly? See, it is reading plus comprehending. Reading plus comprehending. Read is to read, comprehend is to understand. Your ability to read a text and understand it, then solve the questions. Are you able to analyze the nuances given there? What do you mean by nuances? What do you mean by nuances? For example, let's assume there are two sisters. There are two sisters, two girls. Okay. And father one day was talking to the two kids and he bought some gifts and new dresses probably. Okay. So the kids thought, okay, let me wear this dress and show it to my papa or father. They went ahead and got dressed up and came back. To one child, father said, "You look good." To the other child, the father said, "Wow, you look very beautiful." You look good, you look very beautiful. Kids will have fighting there. The words used, looking good is at this level. Very beautiful is at higher level, right? Is there a difference in the words there? Yes, there is a difference. That is what is called as nuances. You do a lot of nuances picking in real life when it comes to birthday gifts given to you by your parents. You compare between siblings and all that. We do a lot of comparison on examination and the marks awarded, right? I've written 5 lines. You gave me only 2 marks, sir. My friend wrote only 4 lines and you gave her 3 marks. We do a lot of comparison and all that, right? So you need to pick up the nuances. You need to read between the lines. You need to infer the content that is given. What do you mean by infer the content? Not everything is explicitly given. Not everything is like clear. You need to dig through the content. Okay? So that is reading comprehension. Your ability to read things, understand things. Now these topics that you are tested on, they are not going to be an area always familiar to you. For example, let's assume you're a engineering student or a pharmacy student. The topic could be something related to philosophy. You can't say, "Oh, this is not my subject, I'll not solve this." No, you can't say that, right? You have to solve it. So whatever be the topic, you should be able to read it. That's very important. Here you will have 3 question types. 1, you have a question, 5 options, and you need to pick the answer. Then you have a question, 3 options, more than one correct answer. More than one correct answer is possible. So only one answer could be correct, two could be correct, or all three could be correct, more than one. Then you have a question and an empty space. And an empty space, no options. You need to go into the paragraph. You need to go into the paragraph and select the line which is the answer to this question. So there's a question, no options. You need to go into paragraph, click on the line which is the answer to that question. That's reading comprehension. So all these question types test your ability to read things, read incomplete things, understand, think critically, infer the content. They test your vocabulary and they test your ability to understand things, most importantly. Okay, so these are the three question types that you have: sentence equivalence, text completion, and reading comprehension. Sentence equivalence, text completion, and reading comprehension. So overall you will have 20 questions in each sections. So 2 sections, approximately 40 questions is what you're going to do. Okay, so 130 to 170 is the scoring range for the verbal reasoning measure. Now what's the target score for me? 130 to 170, what score do you think you want to get? Guys, think, what's your target score? Don't say 130, I'll not be happy. Well, I have some information here and I want you to go through this along with me, and after I finish this, I want all of you to note down one single number in the right top corner of your book. Right side top corner, right? Where you write the name of some god or something like that. So in that corner, one small space, write some number. What's your target score? That gives you a motivation every day whenever you're looking through your material. Let me explain what I have here. Now this data that I have here is collected in the year 2012 to 13. So June 2012 to July 2013, that's the timeline when this data was collected and later it was published. Now approximately 5 lakh test takers took this test in that tenure, approximately 5 lakh test takers. And out of these 5 lakhs, approximately 50,000 people wrote from India. 50,000 GRE test takers from India. Now, here, the mean score of verbal reasoning section, the mean score of verbal reasoning was 150. Mean is average. The mean of analytical writing assessment is 3.5. So the global average of AWA is 3.5, right? Verbal it's 150, quant 152, and AWA is 3.5. So your target has to be more than that. 3.5 is the base score of your AWA. You have to target more. But do understand, this is a global average. What do you mean by global average? There are people from many countries who take this test, right? They could be from China, India, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Bhutan, Brazil, South America, South Africa. Anybody could take this test. So the average is across. So among all these students who take this test, some might be good with their English, some might be good with their math. When we look at the scores of Asian students, and this speaks a little something similar to our case. Alright? Now these Asian students, their verbal reasoning score was something like 146 and quant was 156 and AWA is 3. So if you analyze this drop here, right, and quant has increased, right? There's a difference. So basically these people are probably good at their math than English. So you need to work. Minimum 146. Minimum. Okay? But you have something bigger number to look at. The intended score from engineering major, well, this is a random number that is given. People at least wanted this kind of score limit. Don't be just satisfied with some numbers, but this is at least intended. 145.8 for verbal, 159. Your math faculty might set higher targets for you for math, but 3.2. Okay, guys? So what I set as a target for my students is minimum of 150 in verbal and 3.5 in AVA. 150 and 3.5. That's the target minimum. You get more than that, I'll be very happy. Okay, guys? So what's the target number? What's the score that you want to get in our verbal section? Because overall you should target something like a minimum of 300. That will look good. 300 plus will be good, looking good. So think of it, and I'll give you half a second. What's your target score? You have seen so many numbers. 130 to 170, 150, 152, 148, 146, 3.5, 3.23. What's your target score? Just write one single number on the right corner of your book. Please do that. I just hope you have, all of you have your pens and papers. I'm serious, guys. Do it. And I want you to look at that target score every day. Don't set very less target scores for yourself, okay? You are the best judge of yourself, so set a good target score. Yes? Hope you are done, guys. Hope you are all done. Hope you all are done. Now let me take you through some myths about the marking criteria. Now GRE is a sectional adaptive test. What do I mean by this? Here you have two sections of verbal and two of quant. The performance of one section completely influences the question types or difficulty level of the questions in the second section of yours. So one complete section impacts the second complete section. It doesn't mean that for each question you have this negative marking, 1.5 negative marking or 0.25 negative marking. It's not like that. Within the sections, it's not like that. Your overall performance of one single section influences the next section. That's the reason we say do as many questions as you can in the first section for sure. Do as many questions as you can in the first section without fail so that you get good scores and all that. So it's a sectional adaptive test. There's no negative marking at question level. Question 1 you did wrong, so minus 0.25 and you get a difficult section, difficult question. It's not like that. Section 1, complete performance affects section 2's question levels and all. That is what is called as sectional adaptive test. Within the within the 30 minutes that you have, among those 20 questions, you can move backward and forward, you can review and all that. Our testing platform includes all these things. So do practice your mock exams without fail and you will experience all these good things there. So this is about the marking criteria, guys. It's a sectional adaptive test and there's no question level negative marking. Coming to the scores of GRE. On the day of test, you could send your scores to some colleges, 4 colleges approximately. And what happens is if you come out of the test and send separately, you will be charged extra money, right? So we recommend you to take your test, mock test, come up with an idea of your approximate score range and go to the examination prepared with a list of colleges. That's one thing that I have. If you have taken GRE couple of times and you are in a confusion which score I have to send to the university, there is an option called as score select, which helps you to choose the score you want ETS to send the university. So ETS is the testing agency that tests your GRE, and this is their website, www.ets.org. This website should be on your tongue. Everybody should know that. Any questions about GRE, any myths, any rumors? If you ever come across such things, there are 2 people that you can contact. If you have any difficulty with GRE, there are 2 people you have to contact. One It is definitely Abhyas. Whatever help you need, the admin staff and we are there to help you. And 2, you can check with ETS. Okay, so there are 2 people that you could trust with your information that you need. One is us and the other one is ETS. That's a website and they have a lot of information about the exam. So you can use the score select option. Score reporting has become paperless. You can view your scores online 10 to 15 days after the exam. You receive an email of the same. So that is what is about your scores and the score select. About the rest of the things, if you have any queries, we could look at later. Now, as I discuss the question patterns, I have said that vocabulary is something which is important for your sentence equivalence and text completion questions. How do I improve my vocabulary? What is my vocab level? Where do I stand? For this also, I'll throw a question at you guys. If I ask you on a scale of 0 to 10, where do you grade yourself with your vocabulary? I stand at a scale of 5, 2, 6, 10. What is your number? Think. Don't say 0 or don't say 10. If you say 0, that is impossible because you're sitting in my class. And if you say 10, probably you don't need to sit in the class. Okay? Or probably you are the one who has written the Oxford Dictionary. You are the only one. So you're somewhere in between, but see where you are. That's the number that you need to work consistently to improve. Now, how are we going to learn words? Well, what is there, ma'am? I'll buy a dictionary and I'll try to by heart words from the dictionary. Good. If you ever want to get that comfort, I learn the words from the dictionary. Let me ask you, how many letters are there in English language? How many letters are there in English language? Alphabets. So, when I was a student, long ago, on my GI, as part of my GRE preparation, I started a mission of completing the dictionary. Was it a good effort? Well, I don't know. I did, but was I successful? Yes, I was successful. I have 3 letters to my credit. 3 letters probably. There were 3 letters of dictionary that I've read completely. So that's what I say to my friends also. But do you know what are those 3 letters? Can you guess? The 3 letters of dictionary that I read completely, thoroughly. Oxford Pocket Dictionary, probably this size, this stout one. There were these 3 letters, X, Y and Z. They have the least number of meanings and words under them. So hardly 10, 15 or 20. Yeah, that's what I did. But I don't want you to do shortcuts and things like that. You have better way of learning words. It's not by hearting words from the dictionary or anywhere. These are the multiple strategies that you could use. Pick up the ones that you're comfortable, work on them, and that will help you to remember words for a long time. It's not like this. Words are not like this, that you finish the exam and everything is back into the cloud. Where's your vocabulary? It's in the cloud. It's not here. Oh, it's in my hard drive at home. It's not in my brain. No, your words have to be with you guys because you'll use it in communication. You'll need them in communication. So don't forget them after you finish the exam. And you have to remember them during the exam also. For all that, we begin with one thing called structural analysis. We try to understand the word, root word, prefix, suffix, try to remember the word better. Storytelling. Storytelling is a mode of learning where we believe that the impact of learning words through stories is really good. People remember them for a very long time. You remember the usage. Once you remember the usage, the word and meaning stays in your mind. Okay? Word bridges is about grouping words together. Words of one kind, you try to group them and then everything comes in mind. For example, let's assume you've gone to a restaurant. Okay? You go to a restaurant and you see the menu card. In the menu card, they have starters, you have a list. Main course, you have a list. Curries, you have a list. Desserts, you have a list. They don't mix it up, they categorize it. So we also try to do that in word bridges where we group words together so that everything comes in a flash in our memory, in our mind, so that we remember them better. Visual vocabulary, the power of pictures is immense. The power of pictures is immense. We remember pictures well. I'm sure you might have encountered in your life the situation where I think I have seen you somewhere. But what's your name? Where did I see her? I saw her. This kind of situations are common, right? You know the person, you recognize the face, and you have the difficulty of remembering them. The other day, I've been to a function, a family function, and I met a cousin of mine after, I don't know, 10 years probably. It's been 10 years time. Yeah, close to 10 years. I don't know when I last saw him, 10 or 15 years. And he was in his, a young age at that time. So probably he was in 30s then. And now he has become close to 50s. Complete transformation. So it was really difficult to recognize a distant cousin, of course, guys. So it's a distant cousin of mine. So after a long time, I knew I saw him, but I can't match him with any of my cousin names that I have in my mind. That's a very bad thing. I felt very bad. I realized that I should do meet people often, but fine. That it happens sometimes in life that you don't meet some people for a long time, and when you come across them, you don't remember their name, but you remember the face. So pictures, power of pictures. That so we learn words through some pictures. Contextual vocabulary, this is important for you guys, because understanding the context, understanding the meaning from the context will always help you when it comes to applying a word, right? You need to use words to write your essays. You need words to write your analytical writing assessment. So contextual vocabulary will help you there. RCs also, it becomes easy if you focus on contextual vocabulary. Understanding your sentence equivalence and text completion becomes easy with your contextual vocabulary. Etymology, it's about the roots, prefixes and origins of the words. Is that clear, guys? So this is all about the GRE exam and its verbal pattern and analytical writing assessment. You have your target scores of something like 150 in the verbal and our 3.5. That's from my side a minimum score, guys. I'm not setting too high targets. If you have a better target than that, whatever I've set, it's an applause for you. If you're having something less than that, you better work on it. Okay? So let's begin our session today. We are going to learn about new words. In our learning process, what we actually do is we'll initially begin with vocabulary because it's important for both sentence equivalence and text completion. We'll do some strategies on learning words. I'll teach you the strategies. It's your job to implement them. It's your job to implement them. You have your material, you have word lists in the material, you have to go through them regularly. Remember, the best way to remember words is revision. Revise them frequently. Okay? So when it comes to vocabulary of English language, the word itself originates from Latin word vocabulum. English language is called as lingua franca. What is it all about? Why is it that I have a Latin word here? Remember, the word vocabulum is something which means from where the word vocabulary came, but vocabulum came up from Latin. We call vocabulary English, but vocabulum is Latin. English is called as lingua franca. What do you mean by this? Now, what's your vernacular language? What's your vernacular language? Any idea what's your vernacular language? Your mother tongue. Vernacular language is nothing but your mother tongue. So my mother tongue, Telugu, your mother tongue, Marathi, or Hindi, Urdu, right? Suppose my mother tongue is Telugu and your mother tongue is Urdu, and we need to communicate with each other. How do we do? I want to say to you, can you give me your GRE notes? And you also want to ask me the same question, can you give me your GRE notes? But my mother tongue is Telugu and the other person's mother tongue is Urdu. How do I communicate? We both communicate with each other the language that we are learning in this class, English. So the language which is not the mother tongue of any of the two speakers, right, that is lingua franca. We also call it as vehicular language. Vehicular language. In olden days, for the sake of business, trade, diplomatic issues and all. That is how this language has come out, lingua franca. So if you look at the word vocabulary, and in a dictionary, if you take that, there are immense list, like huge list of words. But why do I need all these words? Why do I need to learn all these words? Well, these are the few purposes that you have to keep in mind. If the question is towards you, then the answer can be the number of words in your own repository. How many words in your own brain? Repository is storage. It can also mean, though loosely, the words we use in our day-to-day conversation or colloquial spoken. What happens is we use our vocabulary for these three purposes. One, I am talking to you, so I need to express myself. That's why I need words. You need to understand me. That's why you need words. These are the two purposes, right? So expressing words is nothing but colloquial. Speaking, colloquial English, spoken English. So for you to speak in English, you need to dig out words from your repository. Repository is a place where you store things for the sake of protection and security and all. So repository is a storage, colloquial is spoken. I recommend you to take down notes, note the words and their meanings, and then go back home, revise them, check their usage. That will help you to retain words in your memory for a longer time. So repository is storage, colloquial is spoken. So you need words to express yourself. But do you need good vocabulary for that? Yes. The good vocabulary is needed because you need to first understand what is communicated to us. Second, communicate to others what we intend to communicate. And third, avoid being verbose or belabor. So earlier I learned two words, guys, that is repository. You look at the words in your storage. So English dictionary has immense list, huge list of words. But when it comes to you, your word list is what you have in your brain, repository, storage. And how do you use them? You use them when you express yourself. Expressing yourself could happen in writing or speech. Speech is nothing but colloquial, spoken. But why do you need good vocabulary? One, to express yourself clearly to someone, to understand others' words properly, and at the same time, don't be verbose or belabor something. What do you mean by verbose? Well, if somebody says, you're very good, pretty, beautiful, looking good, charming, the same word multiple times, it's not interesting, right? You don't like mom saying all the time, keep your room clean, keep your room clean, keep your room clean. Every day, for every hour she says that, you'll get annoyed. You don't want the same thing to be repeated multiple times. So verbose is actually wordy. It comes from the word verbum. It's wordy. Verbose means too many words. So just because you attended GRE vocabulary classes, one single sentence you cannot write it in multiple ways. And then you say that's a big answer, give me more marks. It's not possible, guys. Verbose, wordy, too many words. Another word for the same is prolix. Prolix. Wordy, verbose, too many words. Belabor something. What do you mean by belabor? Now this word has two meanings. Remember, words have multiple meanings. Words have multiple meanings. For example, if I take left hand, left direction. These are the students left in the classrooms. Students already left the classroom. So all these words that you have, left can be used in multiple ways. But belabor also has a couple of meanings. One of them is to attack or beat. To attack, give blows. Suppose I give a blow to you. That is belabor, to give a blow. Another meaning of this word is to assail verbally. To assail verbally. Speak at length. Repeatedly speak at length. Repeatedly speak at length. So the word belabor has two meanings. One, to give blows, B-L-O-W-S, blows. One meaning is to give blows. Another meaning is to assail verbally or to repeatedly speak at length. So if you say the same thing very long, That's also not good. People lose interest of that. So 2 words, verbose is wordy, belabor is to assail verbally. So what you have to do is, remember the words in your brain repository, use them colloquially, at the same time avoid being verbose or belabor. So when it comes to the strategy of learning words, which will help us to have more words in our memory, the strategy is roots, prefixes and suffixes. An English word can have 3 parts, root, prefix and suffix. It doesn't mean that you dissect every word into parts. I don't recommend you to do. But while learning, you can just focus on this. Root is a basic word, and from that you might coin many new words. Prefix is something in the beginning. Suffix is something towards the end. As you know, English language is called lingua franca. It has its origin from many languages. Spanish, Latin, Greek, Sanskrit, Arabic, many languages from across the world. For example, if you take the word juggernaut. Now this word has originated from the word Jagannath. What do you mean by Jagannath? It's one of the Hindu gods' name. And if you remember, Puri Jagannath Rath Yatra. Odisha, Puri Jagannath Rath Yatra. It's a very famous Rath Yatra. Rath is nothing but a chariot. Puri Jagannath Rath Yatra is very famous. Now what used to happen is, I think the stories were like this. In olden days, when people were pulling this Rath, they just put themselves before the wheels of the Rath and they were just crushed. Just imagine, suppose I have a Rath like this. This is my wheel only. Only side view is being given to you. This is a side wheel of my Rath. Okay, something like this. And here I have put a laddu. A nice desert. Round small desert. And I pull it. What will happen? It will become flat, crushed. So Jagannath, the word means anything that crushes. It crushes anything it's on its way. A force that crushes anything on its way. An agent of crushing. A force that crushes anything on its way. That's how the word Juggernaut has come. Similarly, you have the word jungle, from which the Jungle Book, Rudyard Kipling. I hope you know the character Mowgli, the little boy who was lost in the forest and he was brought up by the animals in the forest. So that's the book of Jungle Book. Mowgli was a character written by Rudyard Kipling. Jungle has become jungle. So these are some words from our own mother tongue or Sanskrit, which are adopted into English. We can take a simple example like anthrope, which means human. Let's take one word here, anthrope. Now I have anthropology, misanthrope and anthropomorphic. What I did is I took the word anthrope and I've attached to it anthrope plus logy. Now you all know that logy means, yes, study of or science. So anthrope is human, anthropology is study of humans. Anthrope is human, anthropology is study of humans. I have misanthrope here, the next word. Can you think of words which begin with mis? M-I-S? Can you think of words which begin with M-I-S, miss? Write something. I'll give you 30 seconds. I'll give you exactly 30 seconds. Take your pen and paper. Write letters which begin with M-I-S. And if you remove M-I-S, there should be some meaning. So I don't want you to write something like miscellaneous. And once upon a time, there was a student who wrote Mrs. India or Miss India. No, I don't want something like that also. Okay? Something like mistake. There's some meaning for take if I remove MIS. So I won't like that. So 30 seconds starts now. 30 seconds, guys. See how many words you could write starting with the letter M-I-S. Don't write misanthrope, it's already given here. Let me see if I can write something. Okay, stop. I wrote it along with you. So my words here, if you see, if you wrote something similar to that, that's good enough. I'm sure some of you might have written mistake, mistook, mistake and mistook, mislead, misdirect, misguide, misconception, misjudge, all these words. Now if you observe one close thing here, misbehavior, misunderstand. So misunderstand, misbehavior, they're all relating to something bad, wrong behavior, bad behavior. So mis is always giving some kind of meaning like wrong or bad. But here the word misanthrope, mis means, in the word misanthrope, mis here means mis-amias or amias, so means hatred. So one who hates mankind, cynical. Very pessimistic person, one who hates mankind, cynical, very pessimistic person. What do you mean by pessimism? Now there was a popular story of, and this was something that was used by Prime Minister Narendra Modi in one of his speeches at a college in Delhi. He showed a glass which had water and it was half full. He asked some students, can you describe this glass? There were students who said, it is a glass tumbler or glass container which is half empty. And some said it is a glass container which is half full. So some looked at the missing part and some looked at the part that they have. Those who looked at what that is not there is negative. Those who looked at what you have is positive. The negative, pessimistic. The positive, optimism. This is a popular story about how to explain optimism or pessimism. So cynical person, extremely pessimistic. Misanthrope, one who hates mankind, extremely pessimistic person. Anthropomorphic, what does this word mean? What does this word mean? Think. You have anthrop, which means human. What does morph mean? Have you heard the word of photograph morphing? Right? Abhishek and Aishwarya are standing next to each other and probably you take off the face of Abhishek and you try to put some other face. Morph the photograph. Morph. Right? Or change of shape, metamorphosis. In school days you might have studied change of shape of a caterpillar to a butterfly. Caterpillar is of one shape, butterfly is an entirely different shape. Metamorphosis. A change of shape. So what is anthropomorphic then? Is it change of shapes of humans? Well, the word anthropomorphic that I have here, it actually means you give the non-living innate things a human-like character. You give the non-living things, animals, a human-like character. For example, I'm sure you have seen the television show in Pogo channel, Chota Bheem, or you might have seen Pooh the Bear. Pooh the Bear, Pooh, I think that's the name of the bear. Yeah, Pooh the Bear or Chota Bheem. In Chota Bheem, there's a monkey who talks in English. And he is the one who communicates to the humans on one side and the animals on the other side. A monkey playing hockey, a monkey talking in English, a monkey crying in pain because its tail is cut. Those kind of human-like characters are attributed to a non-living thing or an animal, so that's anthropomorphic. The deer is reading its books. It finished its homework. The deer or the Pooh Bear finished its homework. Right? So Pooh Bear reading a book, that's weird. So that is what is anthropomorphic. Giving the non-living things or the innate things or animals a human-like character. The next word, you have a list of words here. Let's discuss these words. Anthropocentric. Anthropo is human. Centric, centered. Anthropocentric society, human-centered society. Everything in the society is focused around the humans. Human beings are the center. Anthropocentric society, that's what we would say. Human-centered. Anthropogenesis. Genesis, genes. Genesis is about the origins. So anthropogenesis is about the origins of the human race. It's about the origins. Origins about the human race and all. Anthropoid. My example for anthropoid will be chimpanzee. Resembling a human. Resembling a human. I'm sure you've seen a chimpanzee eating a banana like this. I hope it eats the center one, not the skin part. But human-like. Resembling a human. Ape-like. Chimpanzee is an example, so you can remember that. Zoanthropy. Now, in the US slang, you would generally say the word Z. You don't say Z. Z. Okay? Zoanthropy. Zoo. Zoo is a place where you see animals. Zoanthropy. A human being who thinks he has assumed an animal form. So, in some movies, you might have seen comedians behaving like the monkey, they scratch and all that. They behave like that, they act like that, or they act like a dog and start barking and all that. Right? Zoanthropy. A human being who thinks he assumed an animal form. Okay? So, anthropocentric, human-centered. Anthropogenesis, about the origins of the human race. Anthropoid, resembling a human, ape-like. Chimpanzee is an example. Zoanthropy, a human being who thinks he assumed an animal form. Anthropomorphic, giving the non-living innate things a human-like treatment. Some of you might call it something close to personification. It's something similar to personification. Now let's discuss the other set of words that I have here. Ornithology. Ornithology. The other day I've been to a resort in Bidar. Bidar is a place which is close to Hyderabad. Something like, it took us some 2 hours drive. 2 hours drive probably. It was a black buck resort. It was known as black buck resort. Yes, we did see that animal, but at the same time we've seen many birds while we were doing the boat ride and all that. The person who was explaining us about the birds, ornithologist, one who studies about birds. About birds. Logy is a study of, hope you remember that. Paleontology, study about the fossils. What do you mean by fossils? Suppose your parents, they want to build a new house. So they started digging the Bhumi Puja kind of thing, the foundation part. They started the process and suddenly they found some skeleton. They're shocked. And they felt this is a cursed land and they're so disappointed. You, the curious person, took that skeleton to a research lab and studied it. And you found out that's the skeleton of a dinosaur, which gives you millions of dollars. Wow, that's an achievement. That's a good discovery in your land. Fossils, the remains of the animals, the vegetation, fossil fuels. That's why you use the word fossil fuels, right? So, study of the fossils is paleontology. Example, you can remember the dinosaur bone or Jurassic Park movies and all that kind of stuff. Fossils, paleontology, study about the fossils. Meteorology, study about the meteors. Do you think so? Nope. Meteorological Society of India, the one that gives us the weather report. Sometimes it gives us the correct news. The Meteorological Society of India. Cryptology, cryptologist, cryptid information, something which is coded, one who deals with the code. So meteorology is about the weather forecast, cryptology is with respect to code languages, etc. Now what is trilogy then? Is it study of 3 things? I want you to remember one thing here. Do not blindly assume that a word, a spelling should always mean the same. For example, I take the word in, I-N. When I say injustice, I mean unfair. When I say inability, I would say not having the ability to do something. When I say inflammable, do I still mean not having the ability to catch flame? It does not have about it. It is not catching flame. It does catch flame. Highly inflammable material. If you see big trucks, oil containers and all, they have a diamond kind of shape, and on that they have a skeleton like this, and they say highly inflammable. Highly inflammable substance or something like that. It catches fire readily, so you can't smoke them. So trilogy is a series of three things. It's not a study of three things. It's a series of three things. A series of three works. The three works could be books or movies. For example, if you take Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings, that novel has 3 books. It's a series of 3 books. Where people say Tolkien's, I think Tolkien is the name of the author, Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. It's a trilogy. A series of 3 books. Now similarly, if you take the movie Sarkar. Sarkar is there and Sarkar Raj is made after it. So Sarkar Raj is called as a sequel, one that follows the other one. If there's a third picture that comes in, then that will be a trilogy, a series of 3 works. Could be movies, could be books or anything like that. Okay guys? Clear? Good. So let's begin with the prefix here, EU. Let's begin with the prefix EU. EU doesn't mean European Union. EU here means good, pleasant and kind. And my word here is euphemism. Euphemism. What does euphemism mean? A pleasant substitute for a harsh word. A pleasant substitute for a harsh word. I had this wonderful experience when I was a student in Chicago. I was going by train. At the railway station, the train has come and there was an announcement. I was really impressed by the announcement. The announcement goes like this. All senior citizens are requested to board the train. Senior citizens, people who are above 65. Then all expecting moms and moms with kids, toddlers are expected to board the train. Then the business class, then the normal public. It was really nice that elderly people are given that respect. Now the word senior citizens, it's a euphemistic word. If the same announcement goes like this, all old people, you better board the train quickly. Old people, that's hurts. That hurts. The other day I've been to a party. It was an alumni meet, and there were a couple, husband and wife. And there's another little boy, somebody else's kid. And the little kid comes and says to the girl, Didi, can I sit here? Didi is like sister. Didi, can I sit here? She says, yeah, go ahead, sit here, no problem, sit next to me, no issue. And then he says to her husband, Uncle, can I take this? So wife is called as a sister, husband is called as an uncle. That's a heart attack for him, right? You don't want to be looking as old. You don't want somebody to say to you that uncle and aunt kind of thing, especially when you're in that age group when you don't consider yourself to be that. Some people would consider that as disrespectful, or they might be hurt. So senior citizens is a euphemistic word of old people, which is a good one. A pleasant substitute for the harsh word. A pleasant substitute for the harsh word. Good, EU, pleasant, kind, and famous means speech. Got it, guys? Euphemism, a pleasant substitute for a harsh word. Now you have blasphemous. Blasphemous speech irreverent, disrespectful. Whenever there is a bill that has to be passed in the assembly or in the parliament, and the kind of discussions that happen between the ruling party and the opposite party, you may hear blasphemous speech, disrespectful, highly irreverent speech. That is blasphemy. It's like opposite, but you have the word phemos, which is related to speech. Okay. Now let's see some example about how do you describe when somebody is dead, somebody passed away. You say, he's dead. It's a shock. He passed away. Okay. He reached heavenly abode. He kicked the bucket. When you say he kicked the bucket, that's actually humorous. It's the same message that he is no more, but it is being passed in a very smooth, soft way. It is being passed, it's being given to in a smooth, soft way. Right? So, the word kick the bucket, do you really need a bucket to die? Nope, not really. So this is a word, that's how the word, somebody said once, do you need a bucket to kill yourself? Well, not truly, but those are the euphemistic usages of the word. I have some list of words here, let me quickly take you through this. The word homely and comely. Well, here you need to note, homely and comely are little opposite to each other. They are little opposite to each other. Homely means plain and unattractive. Homely means plain and unattractive. Plain and unattractive. On the other side, comely means attractive. This is a homely and this is a comely part. But when you say homely, you are very homely. You are very comely. So the word looks a little short and might give a feeling to people that homely is a better word, but not really. Not really. Okay? So if a restaurant says we serve homely food, why do you need to go to a restaurant if you get the same kind of food like at home? You want to eat something different, that's why you go to a restaurant. Probably, right? So sometimes people say, she looks like the heroine looks like a girl next door. The heroine looks like a girl next door. Well, you can take that as a compliment or the other way too. If she looks like a girl next door, that's okay. Should I really spend money on the movie? Not sure. Because most of the time, people watch movies because of the star cast. Storyline is least important to many people. Okay, let me get to the next word, guys. Capital punishment versus death penalty. Here, these two words mean the same. The word capital punishment, it looks like it is some kind of penalty, but no, it is also death penalty. Capital punishment is same as death sentence. Azmal Kassab, who was involved in the November 2008 Bombay attack, was given capital punishment. Capital punishment, death sentence. Restroom comfort station, using that word is much better than the word toilets, they are same. Penitentiary versus prison. Now, if you know, in the news, most of the time, we see that the CEO of this company, Satyam, for example, Satyam Ramalinga Raju of Satyam Computers, was in jail for a good enough time. There are many politicians who were in jail. For example, Jagannath Sakshi was in jail for some time. Jail is nothing but the prison. Now, if some investors want to go and talk about investing in their company, and if somebody asks, where's your chairman? You say, oh, he's in the prison. Immediately, the investment bankers will run off from there. Instead, if you use the word penitentiary, oh, he's at the penitentiary. Okay, penitentiary. Probably these investment bankers did not sit in our GRE class, so they don't know the meaning of the word penitentiary. So they think, okay, that's some other place, probably that's some office. Oh, where is it? What does he do there? Must be busy there. So these kind of statements might come. So penitentiary is nothing but it's same as a prison. It's same, but it looks sophisticated. Okay, guys. So euphemism, euphemistic. Homely versus comely, they are opposite, but the remaining words are almost similar. They give a similar idea. Death penalty and capital punishment, they are same. Restroom versus comfort station, simple. Penitentiary is nothing but a prison. Let's look at some more words related to EU. The first word is eugenics. Eugenics. What do you mean by eugenics? The story goes like this. Probably it's not a real story, but somebody has made up. But I hope you all remember Hitler, the Nazis and the Hitler. Yes, Hitler? Okay. Now, it seems Hitler, in order to find someone to be a good, strong man, what he did was he threw people from the top of a mountain. From the top of a mountain. Whoever survived is considered to be a good, strong man. Whoever is dead, chapter close. Eugenics, good genes. So what happens in eugenics is you do a selective breeding process so that good genes propagate to the next generation. So two good breeds of horses brought together and allowed to mate. Eugenics, selective breeding to propagate good genes. Good genes. Eupeptic. Now peptic acid is something related to your tummy. It helps in your digestion and all. Imagine your tummy, belly, tummy. Okay, it's not fine. You have some kind of constipation. Can you sit in this class peacefully if you have stomach pain? Stomach upset? No. So eupeptic, peptic acid relates to your tummy and all, but if your tummy is fine, you are actually very happy. Tummy not fine, you are not happy. Eupeptic means cheerful. So that's how this word has come up. Peptic acid related to the acids in your tummy, but the word is used for cheerful. Eudemon. Demon means devil. Eudemon is a good devil. Okay? Eudemon, a good devil. Eulogy, a praising speech. Eulogy, it's not a study of guys, it's a praising speech. For example, some politician passed away. And the opposition party leader, whether he likes it or not, he needs to prepare a eulogy to speak at his funeral. Eulogy is a praising speech, and generally the praising speeches which are given at a funeral are called eulogy. Don't restrict it to funerals, but the speeches that are given at a funeral, generally at a funeral of a person, you don't talk bad words about him. You try to talk nice words about him. That's our tradition and that's what we believe in. So, eulogy, a praising speech. Logy is not study of here. EU means good. Got it, guys? So, eugenics is about selective breeding to propagate good genes. Eupeptic, cheerful. Eudemon, a good devil. Eulogy, a praising speech. The word eulogy is often confused with elegy, which is a sad, mournful poem. Mournful poem. What do you mean by mournful? If you remember, probably there may be instances. This is our national flag, and whenever there's somebody some big leader, some big person is no more, they say bring the flag to half the height, something like that. 3 mourning days are given. In olden days, only DD time, no other channel time. Sad music is played on TV. There's no television shows. Nowadays, that kind of stuff don't happen. But mournful, sad, grief. So, elegy is a sad, mournful song. Do not get confused between these two. Okay? Elegy, a sad, mournful poem or song. So, you have the word eulogy. From that, you have some other words. All these words are related to praise. All these words are related to praise. Eulogy is the praising speech. I have paean, I have panegyric, I have citation and encomium. Paean, panegyric, citation and encomium. What is paean? This is more like a song of praise. Song of praise, song of thanksgiving. Joyful poem, a song of praise. Paean. Panegyric and encomium, they are more like public compliments. You compliment in public. For example, it's your principal's farewell party. Assume you're a student in a college where the principal is retiring. And at the farewell party, whether you like or not, you talk good words about the principal. The principal say, I'm flattered by the encomiums. Encomium are praising words. Again, this is also related to formal praise. Formal praise. I'm flattered by the encomiums. Formal praise. Citation. Well, citation is also an appreciation or a praise, but this we generally use for military related works. Appreciate, praise, but military related works. For example, assume you are an army soldier and you've done a brave deed. Something like you've done something too good in Kargil war, or you fought very bravely against the intruders and all. Then you receive some kind of awards, appreciations and all. So, military related terminology for praising is citation. Apart from that, people also say tribute. Tribute to Lata Mangeshkar, tribute to Sachin Tendulkar. These are also things related to praising and all. Okay, so eulogy is a praising speech. Paean is a song of praise. Panegyric, encomiums, they are public compliments or formal praise. Citation is also praise but related to military. So what I want you to do here is try to note down these words. All these words will come like a flash in your memory now. Note down the words, guys. I recommend you to do that a lot. Don't miss that. Paean, panegyric, citation and encomium. Eulogy is the main word. Okay? Next. Now we learned about praise, so let's learn about the other thing. What's the opposite of praise? Yes? Right. Criticism. Opposite of praise is to find fault, to criticize. C-I-Z-E, criticism. Tirade, philippic, broadside, diatribe, fulmination, thunderous verbal attack. The newspaper launched into a tirade. Tirade could be a volley of words. An angry speech. Angry talk. A-N-G-R-Y. Tirade. Her tirade provoked a counterblast from her husband. She said something, her husband said something else. Philippic, broadside, they are also verbal attacks. Diatribe, he launched into a diatribe. Fulmination, words are like thunderbolts. All these are related to severe criticism, speaking in anger, right? Censure is another word that I would give for the same. You're verbally attacking someone. Verbal could be oral, spoken or written. Anything could happen. Verbally attacking someone, verbally attacking someone. So all these are more related to opposite of praise. Note down the words: tirade, philippic, broadside, diatribe, fulmination. So you're just shouting at someone, you're giving an angry speech. See that, guys? You better note down your words. If I say that in an angry tone and if I give a speech like that, that's a tirade. Philippic. Okay? Next. Harangue, rant. Rant is to speak in anger, you write something in anger. Both rant is to speak in anger or write expressing your anger. Harangue is a pompous speech. A pompous emotional speech. Imagine your principal on Independence Day gives you a speech about discipline, attendance, dress code, etc. Maintenance of the building, campus building. So all those things. An emotional speech, a pompous speech, a bombastic speech is called as harangue, where a lot of emotions are shown. Right? You show a lot of emotional thing. A long harangue from the headmaster about good behavior. Okay? No mobile phones in the classroom. and a speech about it, harangue. Okay, you have two other words here which are similar to eulogy, applaud and laud. This is a picture related to that. Applaud, appreciate. Laud, it is a laudatory performance, appreciating. Got it, guys? So we learned words related to praise and criticism. Praise, eulogy, paean, panegyric, citation. Criticism, severe censure. Tirade, verbal attack. Tirade, philippic, broadside. Diatribe, fulmination, harangue and rant. These are the words which are related to speaking in anger, expressing your anger. Okay? The next word is euphoria. Euphoric state is a pleasant state of mind. Euphoric state is a pleasant state of mind. Ecstatic, nth degree of happiness, very, very happy. Assume in your first year of your graduate studies, you worked very hard, you wrote your final exams and you got something like 60% marks. You went to a father and said, Daddy, I got 60% marks. He looks at you and says, okay, good. Thank you, you passed the examination. I don't have to pay the exam fee again. Thank you, good. That's what he says. You're a little hurt with that. What you do next is, the next year, second year, and you do really well and you get something like 95% marks. With full of energy, you go to your dad to say, Dad, I got 95% marks. And your dad says, good. And then he's busy with his work. 60% same good, 95% same good. That's not fair, right, guys? You need a gift for such good marks. That's what you expect. So, well, the kind of expectation, the happiness that you expect your dad to be when you get that percentage of marks is called as ecstasy or ecstatic. Very, very, very happy. Assume you got 340 out of 340 in GRE, verbal plus con score. Ecstatic, very, very, very happy. Very, very, very happy. Nth degree of happiness is called as ecstasy. So assume it's a hot summer afternoon and if somebody gave you an ice cream, eating it is pleasure. But ecstasy is higher level of happiness. Similarly, surprise. If students are regular to classroom, that's a surprise. Or is it an astonishment? Astonishment is a little bit of shock. Astonishment is a little bit of shock. Okay? So pleasure and ecstasy, there's an intensity variation here. That's what I wanted you to know. A list of words are given here and there's an intensity difference. We need to learn the nuances of words, the intensity difference or things like that you need to know. Misbehavior versus crime. Using a mobile phone in the classroom is a misbehavior. Using a mobile phone in the classroom is a misbehavior. But trying to kill the teacher who is teaching you, that's a crime. Intensity difference. Similarly, joy and euphoric, you have the intensity difference. Okay guys, intensity different words. So ecstasy is nth degree of happiness. Astonishment is a surprise with a shock there. Surprise with a little bit of shock factor. Misbehavior, crime, intensity different, joy and euphoric, there's an intensity different. Now down the word there, ecstasy and euphoria. Ecstasy and euphoria. Okay. Euphony. We know that EU is good. EU is good. Phony is related to sound. Euphony is a pleasant sound. Euphony is a pleasant sound. What is a pleasant sound? Something which is pleasing to ears. Melody, good music, good voice. Euphony. Now along with the words euphony, you have two other words, consonants and assonants. What do these words mean? Now I'm sure you heard the word harmony. What do you mean by harmony? It's related to a situation where the music is pleasant, where the sound is pleasant, it's not noise. But the word harmony is also used in the situation where there's harmony between the two nations, there's peace between the two nations. Right? So harmony, one meaning of it is related to sounds, another meaning of it is related to peace. What do you mean by peace? When do countries fight? India and Pakistan, issues line of control or Kashmir. India and China, again it's a border line. So there are disagreements, there's disagreement with respect to certain issues, that's when there's no harmony. But when there's agreement on issues, you can expect them to have peace. Right? Harmony can also be related to agreement there. So that is how it's used. A distant word. Similarly, you have the words consonants and assonants. In English language, you have vowels and consonants. What are vowels? A, E, I, O, U are vowels and the remaining consonants. So if it's in a music, the rhythm is on the vowels, you say it's assonants. And if the rhythm is on the consonants, you say consonants. Rhythm. What do you mean by rhythm? The final ending word. Tilling in the mill. If I say tilling in the mill, I, the focus is on I, that is assonance. But these two words are also used for agreement. Agreement. Okay? Euphony, euphonic. You have another word, mellifluous. Melly means honey. Flu means flow. But what is mellifluous? Lata Mangeshkar has mellifluous voice. Melly means honey, flu means flow, F-L-O-W, flow. So together, mellifluous, sweet sounding. Dulcet is also similar to that, melodious. It's nothing but melodious. Lata Mangeshkar has mellifluous voice. Okay? So, euphony, a pleasant sound. Mellifluous, sweet sounding voice. Consonants and assonants, it's similar to agreement, dulcet, sweet sounding voice. Okay? Now you had the word euphoric earlier. What do you mean by euphoria? Pleasant state of mind. Euphoria is pleasant state of mind. Ecstasy, very, very happy. But I have two other words there, melancholy and dejected. What do you mean by melancholy? Melancholy. Assume you are going to a friend's party. On the way to the party, you are fully energetic. But while coming back from the friend's party, it's midnight, 12 o'clock, and it's a new moon day. That means dark, complete dark. And you're driving on a highway where there's no traffic. And on both sides, it's woods, forest area. Because the party was in a resort outside the city. And the music on Radio FM was little scary. And suddenly you hear the noise of a fox. Or probably there's a deer that just crosses your way. Or maybe there's a buffalo which is walking on the road and you're just scared to see a dark object coming towards you. Melancholy, gloomy. Just imagine all those things. Gloomy. So the type of relation that you have between these two words is opposite. Earlier you saw the intensity based relation. Here it's opposite. It's good to learn words like this so you will understand the nuances. Ecstasy is very, very happy, but dejected means depressed. He was dejected after losing the World Cup. The team was dejected after losing the World Cup. Probably my general knowledge is a little poor, but you know it better. So whoever wins is happy, whoever lost is unhappy, dejected, depressed. Okay guys, so euphony is a pleasant sound, mellifluous, sweet sounding voice. Euphoric is pleasant state of mind, and degree of happiness is ecstatic. Accord and concord, discord. The two words accord and concord, they are related to agreement. The two words accord and concord are related to agreement, and discord means disagreement. I concur with her, I agree with her. So, discord is disagreement, accord and concord mean agreement. What do you mean by discord? Can I use it in a sentence? Can you think of a sentence where you could use discord? There is no discord between me and my friends. There is no discord between the two parties. Discord, disagreement. Now, with respect to sound, dissonance, it's more like a noisy atmosphere. All kinds of weird sounds just suddenly come. That's dissonance. Cacophonous. Cacophonous. What happens to the classroom when the teacher steps out? As soon as the teacher steps out, you have so many things to talk that you've just kept yourself quiet for the 2 hours or so. So much general knowledge you need to share or whatever. It is cacophony, noisy. As soon as the teacher steps out of the classroom turns cacophonous, noisy. A symphony is more about sync of music. It's related to, you can use it for orchestra music and all that kind of things. So phony is sound, sonar is also sound. So similar meaning, two different words. Cacophony and noisy. And symphony is more related to the pleasant music, something related to orchestra and all. Sim actually means together. So if you take the word synonym, onym is a root word which is related to name. Onym is a root word which is related to name. Synonym, similar name. Similar name. Synonym is a similar word, right? Synonym, similar word. You have this word anonymous. It is my birthday and an anonymous person gave me a bouquet of flowers. It's my birthday and an anonymous person gave me a bouquet of flowers. Scary. Stranger, anonymous. Name not known. Stranger. Name not known, anonymous. Patronym. If you have your father's name towards the end of your name, that's patronym. If you have your mother's name towards the end of your name, that's matronym. Patronym. Patri. Patri, that's related to father. Matri, matter, that's related to mother. Symposium is a gathering. Sympathy, pity. So what's the word pathos here? Sympathy. Sympathy means pity. What do you mean by pity? If somebody falls down and you feel, oh, poor man, he fell down, that's sympathy. You exhibit a similar feeling. You share with the feelings of the other person, similar feeling, sympathy, pity. So pathos is a word which is related to feeling, and from that you get a list of words. What I wanted to do here is, first I'll explain the words and I'll leave it for you to copy a little later. So listen to me first. Listen to me first. I'll give you time to copy. Pathos is a root word which is related to feeling. Sympathy. Sim means together, similar, pati. So you feel the same thing, what other is going through. That is sympathy. But the other side, you have this word antipathy. Anti means against. So it's an opposite feeling. Empathy is of higher intensity than sympathy. Apathy is more like casual. You're not at all bothered. Let me differentiate these words first. Sympathy, apathy, antipathy and empathy. Suppose this is a classroom and I slipped down and fell. Some of you say, oh, poor ma'am, she fell down. Poor lady. That's a feeling. Some who might say, good, nice thing happened. She's been troubling me with words for the past 1.5 hours or so, and she deserves this kind of punishment. Good that she fell down. I can take a breath now. Antipathy, a dislike, a hatred. So antipathy is dislike. Good, nice thing. She deserves it. Dislike. Empathy. Oh, she is alone who fell down. Let me also go down and fall down. Right? If some of your friends, probably his dress got wet, and you say, oh, your dress is wet, don't worry, I'll make mine also wet and it doesn't look odd. So, empathy. If you see Mahabharat, Hindu mythology, Mahabharat, there's a lady whose husband was blind and so she covers her eyes. She empathized with her husband's blindness. So this word is little higher intensity than sympathy. It's of higher intensity than sympathy. Many people empathize with the death of the popular leader and kill themselves. Many people empathize with the death of the popular leader and kill themselves. That is empathy. The other word is apathy. I fell down here and you're busy talking to your friend or using your mobile or something, which is not allowed though. You're doing something else. You're not at all bothered what happened. That's very casual response. So that is apathy. So this is a difference among these words. If I consider pity is something similar to sympathy. Clemency. Generally the word we use a lot is inclement actually. Inclement means unfavorable. The day when I went to the US, I was waiting for my flight from night 11:30 to morning 5 o'clock. Probably it started in 5 because of the floods or something like that. The weather was bad. Inclement weather. December time, if you follow the news reports, the flights to Delhi were cancelled because of inclement weather, bad weather, unfavorable weather, inclement. So clemency is something favorable and kind. Compassion is similar to pity, but it is little higher than pity. Beni means good or kind. Beni means good or kind. Benevolence, wishing good to other people, being kind to other people. Generosity, you're helping people in need, you're generous to them, you're kind to them. So sympathy, pity, compassion, these are some words which are related to being kind, being nice, being good, being favorable and all. So you have the words related to sympathy there. On the other side you have antipathy, which is against, dislike. A strong dislike will be hatred. I hate it. A strong dislike is hatred. So that's a different word. There's an intensity difference there. Empathy is higher intensity than sympathy, and you have the other words related to apathy. Nonchalant, casual, dispassionate and indifferent. What do you mean by nonchalance? For example, again I'll take the example of Jagan, who is the son of the ex-chief minister of the state of Andhra Pradesh when it was united. And this guy was in jail, prison. And whenever he used to come out from the prison, he was not like this. He was instead smiled. So the pain of being arrested or the fear was nowhere reflected on his face. His nonchalant attitude, he didn't bother about it probably. Nonchalant, apathetic. He didn't bother about the cases on him. Nonchalant. Okay? Indifferent, dispassionate or casual towards things. Let me give you a common story here. This was a story which one of my colleague shared to me. Suppose you need to travel to some place, and the mode of transport, the conveyance that you choose for yourself is a rickshaw. That too not an auto rickshaw or a cab or something like that, but the olden days rickshaw. How was the olden days rickshaw? It just had wheels and not somebody has to pedal. In old days, they just have to carry it like this. They don't pedal, they carry it. Later the cycle and other things have come up. So olden days rickshaws were like that. So human being was pulling them. So the rickshaw guy, the driver, is a thin, lean man, and the lady who sat on it is pretty stout, fat. Now this lady is being pulled in the rickshaw, and now they have to go on a highway, a bridge, something like this. So this is my bridge. This poor man is trying to pull the lady in the rickshaw. Now gradually it started going up like this. So if the lady says initially, "Oh, am I too heavy?" Sorry, that's sympathy. If she screams at him and says, "Because of you I am getting late," yells at him, "I don't like you, I shouldn't have come on this vehicle," or things like that. She's screaming, yelling. Antipathy. If she says, "You sit, I will ride," that's something like empathy. She doesn't bother what's going on, and she's doing busy makeup because it's a party that she needs to go, and she's just doing the final touch-ups. That's apathy. She's indifferent to what's going on. She's busy with her own work. Casual, indifferent, non-calent. That is apathy. So that's how I would distinguish all the words there. Okay guys, so you can note down the word list here. I'll give you a minute, you can copy it. Pathos, I'm reading with sympathy words. Sympathy, clemency, pity, compassion, benevolence, generosity. Opposite word, antipathy. Antipathy. Higher intensity word, empathy. Higher intensity word, empathy. Apathy, non-callence, casual, dispassionate, indifference. Okay, moving on. Now you heard the word sonar, sound, right? If the music is not in sync, it's not proper, we would say the music is not proper. Similarly, with respect to time, we have the root word chron, and if things are not proper with time, we have the word anachronism. Let me explain this word properly first. Chron is a root word which is related to time. C-H-R-O-N. And anachronism is misfit with respect to time. How many of you have seen bullock carts these days? Bullock carts are anachronistic in today's high-tech world. In metropolitan cities, have you seen bullock carts? Not really. I saw once or twice probably. Rare. Especially if there's any crop coming from the fields or farms, that's when you see. But bullock carts are considered to be anachronistic, a misfit with time. Assume you are playing the role of Rama and your friend is playing the role of Sita in a college function. And proper olden days Ramayana, it's not the modern Ramayana or something like that. As soon as Sita comes onto the stage, her phone starts ringing. She says, "Oh, hello, how are you? I'm on the stage. Can you call me later?" That's what she says. And annoyed Rama, he immediately takes his mobile phone and starts playing games. And puts a Facebook message. "See, Sita used a phone on the stage." Sita and Rama using Facebook? Sita and Rama using phone? It's misfit with respect to time. Anachronistic. If you're playing the role of Lord Sri Krishna in a movie and if you have a watch on your hand, the moment you raise your hand, that's anachronistic, a misfit with respect to time. So out of rhythm, out of sound is dissonance, out of time is anachronistic. So note down the word anachronism. Anachronism, a misfit with respect to time, out of time. So billiard cards are considered anachronistic. It comes from the root word chron. There was a movie Troy, which is related to olden days movie, and in one of the screenshots there was a helicopter on the top. Helicopter, if it's a mythological movie, let's assume it's a mythological movie, this is not, but, and there's a helicopter on the top. See, misfit with respect to time, anachronistic. You have chronic diseases, something which is there for a very long time, chronic disease, a fatal disease, something which is very, has been there for a long time. Chronicles, the Narnia Chronicle, Deccan Chronicle, is more like the newsletters. Chronicles, chronicle, chronic disease, chronicles, Narnia Chronicles, Deccan Chronicles. Anachronism, misfit with respect to time. Euthanasia. What do you mean by the word EU? Do you remember? Yes, EU means pleasant, kind, good. You have the many words like euphony, euphemism, euphoria, right? Euthanasia. Thanatos is a Greek god of death. He's a god of death. But what is euthanasia? A pleasant death, something similar to mercy killing. Death is generally painful. There's a little bit of struggle in death. But there may be some people who are in a lifeless condition, vegetative condition. They are really dependent on people for survival, and they are dependent on a lot of life support system and all that. And they believe death is much better thing than living like that. So when somebody is undergoing a painful death, the doctors, with the consent, with the permission of the patient, they try to provide him a quick and pleasant death, which is called as euthanasia, nothing but a mercy killing. There's a Guzarish movie in Hindi, the role was played by Hrithik Roshan, mercy killing, where instead of killing the person by stabbing or something like that, something is injected into the body of the person so that he passes off. With respect to Indian rules, there was a popular case of Aruna Shanbhag. Aruna Shanbhag, she was a nurse in Bombay Hospital, and she's been in a vegetative state for very, very long time, few decades. And so one of her friends approached Supreme Court to give her the permission for euthanasia. Supreme Court said no, and I think they have given her permission for passive euthanasia. Passive euthanasia is slightly different. Euthanasia is basically giving them a kind of death which is peaceful, inject something into their body and kill. Passive euthanasia means if you're someone who is dependent a lot on life support system, remove the life support system and all. You can read about this, what is it and what are the policies, how different countries respond to it and all. Okay, pleasant death, euthanasia. You had the word Benny earlier, which is good. You have the word mal here, which means bad and evil. Mal, malfunction, malnutrition, malnourishment. Have you heard those words? Malaware, malcontent, malpractice. Malpractice, wrong practice, malnourishment, not having the right nourishment. Malpractice, yep. Those are words which are related to bad, evil and all. So let me discuss a few words here related to that. The first word is malign. Malign. The opposition party is trying to malign my reputation. Vilify is another word which is nothing but slander, which is nothing but defame. Defame. Vilify, slander, malign, defame. You're trying to spoil someone's reputation. That is malign. Malaise, a diseased condition. Suppose you're someone who is having a headache, severe headache and fever, running nose. How will you be? Will you be like this fully energy, or will you be very dull, energyless and all? A diseased condition is called as malaise. Malice. I see malice in his eyes, evil intentions. I see malice in his eyes, evil intentions. Malignant. He has malignant tumor, harmful. He has malignant tumor, harmful. So all these words come from the root mal, which is related to bad, evil or harmful. Bad, evil or harmful. Malign is to defame, spoil someone's reputation, vilify, slander. Malaise is a diseased condition. Malice, evil intentions. Malignant is harmful. So you have the other words with mal, malpractice, malnourishment, malnutrition, etc. Okay. So as I said, benevolent, bene is related to good. You have the words benign and malign. Malign is basically spoiling someone's reputation and all, but benign is kind and favorable, good. Suppose if I ask you, did you apply for your passport? Did you apply for your passport yet? No, madam. My mother said next month 25th is a very good day. It is a benign day to apply for a passport. Good, auspicious, kind, favorable, suitable. This is the benign moment to sell winter clothes. Probably if somebody says like that, winter is a good time for selling winter clothes and summer is a good time to sell summer clothes. So benign, kind, favorable, suitable. Beneficiary and benefactor. These two words come from the same root, bene. Beneficiary is a person who receives the benefit. So if there is a benefit, one person has to give it, other person has to take it. So the giver of benefit is benefactor. The giver is benefactor and the recipient is beneficiary. Okay, benign, good, malign, spoiling reputation, beneficiary, benefactor. Okay. Okay. Now we learned so many words, but we also learned that we shouldn't really associate few words to few things only. For example, I have this word pediatrics here. We know a pediatrician is a doctor who deals with children health and all that. In this word pediatrics, pedos is a root word which is related to child. Itricia is a root word which is related to medicine. So together pediatrics is a branch of medicine which is concerned with the treatment of infants and children. Okay? You all know this word. The other word pedodontist, see here pedi is there and here pedo is there. A slight difference in the spelling. Pedodontist, it's a dentist who specializes in the care of teeth. Pedodontist is related to child dental care. The doctor who deals with that. Pediatrics, pediatrician, you know the word. Pedodontist takes care of children's teeth. Now I have two other words. Pedicure. Pediatrics have the same P-E-D-I and this also have P-E-D-I. Does pedicure mean children care or children cure? Nope. I'm sure all of you know it's related to foot treatment where cleaning up your toenails and all that. Pedicure. So it is related to foot care, foot treatment and all. On the other side, you have tripod. Tripod, 3 legs stand. 1, 2, 3. Tri-use-tree and 3 legs. So legs or foot, here it's pod and there it is ped. Same thing, different spelling. Same spelling, different thing. So remember, you do have words like eulogy, trilogy. You do have such words which may have a logy but they are not science or study. You have pedicure, you have pediatrician. So I don't want you to forget such words. Is that clear, guys? Hope you would remember this and I recommend you to revise all the words that you've learned so far. Target score, have it in mind and consistently work towards that. With this word here, we would close our session and I recommend you to go through all the words prefixes, suffixes, roots and all. We learnt about EU and we learnt so many words like that. Euphony, euthanasia, euphoric and all. We learnt about anthrope, misanthrope, anthropocentric, etc. Right? So try to put words together, remember them and recollect them. Have a good day, guys. Take care.